Welcome to this week's End of Days Update, coming to you from Tulsa, Oklahoma. We're coming to you every week to look at the different things that point to the coming of the Lord. There's so many signs about the coming of the Lord. It's amazing there's so much information in the Bible. You think about it, 1/3 of the Bible is prophecy. For every one verse there is about the first coming of the Lord, there's 8 times more about the second coming. So very documented that we can get into and check off a list literally about how close we are. So we look at what will happen just after the rapture. We talk about this every week, but the Ezekiel 38 war literally has the players set up to have that come to pass so shortly. Why that's a big deal? Because that happens just after the rapture. Many people say, well, how can you tell that? Because a lot of people don't believe that. Well, what happens is God intervenes for Israel, and this dispensation of grace, He doesn't. He leaves everything up to the church because He gave the church all authority. So it's obvious that it's old covenant time where God can do things that He hadn't been able to do for 2,000 years. So you're seeing event after event that are literally getting things ready for that war. So that tells us we don't have a lot of time left for the rapture of the church. So I know we keep saying that, but why do we say that? Because that's true. And Jesus is coming very soon. I like what Peter said in 2 Peter. He said people are willingly ignorant. They didn't think the change was coming, talking about the flood, that a change came whether people believed it or not. And remember when Jesus walked into town, demons started crying out, have you come to torment us before the time? So they knew Jesus was on a schedule. He was just early. So if demons could know the time, how much more the church? I mean, the Lord even had a whole tribe in the Old Testament that all they did was have an understanding of the times, the tribe of Issachar. Why? If you have an understanding of the times, you'll know what you should do. If you thought Jesus was coming back this week, I guarantee it'd change your life. You'd hustle, you'd soul win more, you'd live cleaner, you'd get your relationship white hot with Him. So let's pick up on what's happened all around Israel, because so many things are pointing to this, that it's wonderful how close we are to His return. Number one, what looks like Israel did another airstrike right off of Damascus last week, took out one of the heads of the Iranian National Guard. So with that, the Iranians returned with, we have a brand new missile defense system, air defense system being installed into Damascus. It's actually built by China, coming out of North Korea. So it will be intriguing to see how well that can hurt Israelis' airplanes. But in the past, all those things haven't really deterred them at all, because Israel keeps having to do that. What was the big deal last week? You had 100 missiles come from Iran to Hamas that got unloaded right there by Lebanon. I mean, these were mustard gas, all kinds of chemical weapons. I mean, those are deal breakers. The thing that you have happening this week is Iran's continuing its firepower into the northern Iraq where the Kurds are, and Turkey's getting ready to totally invade Syria. I mean, where did this come from? What you would announce you're about to invade another country and say that you're going to cleanse the country, just like Hitler said he was going to cleanse Poland, just like Putin said he was going to cleanse the Ukraine. It's not cleansing, it's murdering people. So all of the armament is ready for that, just like you have a new buildup of Russian armament on the Polish border. I mean, NATO's kind of freaking out about that, which NATO should. So you got a lot of jockeying for position, a lot of verbiage that you hardly would think you'd never hear right before the coming of the Lord, but it's out there, man. It's crazy. Oh, so much more. You have the defense minister, Gantz, is stepping down, but he did tout that he signed on for 10,000 new homes in the West Bank. You've got the verbiage really coming against Israel over and over and over again. There's probably been more anti-Semitism than I've ever seen before just in the last couple of months. You got crazy stuff happening, though, that are really pointing to the coming of the Lord. You got Cambridge, a college here in America. They came forward saying that Jesus was transgender. I don't even talk about all the stuff that happens in all the schools that point to the coming of the Lord. The craziness, happening where people are just getting weirder and weirder. So that's another sign of the coming of the Lord. So you see that blatantly happening. You've got people, companies pulling out of Portland, Oregon because they're not safe. They've been broken into 18 times in 6 months. So these cities that are literally wanted to defund the police, they're being run horrifically now to where there's no law and order. So it's amazing to see just exactly what the Bible said you'd see. What did the Bible say before the days of Noah? There'd be corruption and violence, and man, it's blatantly like that. You have more stuff happening with North Korea firing ICBMs, doing tests from that. You've got America bouncing back, kind of countering that. Probably the crazy thing this week was Iran listing all these major sites that they're going to bomb in Israel. I mean, how crazy is that? So Israel had a joint exercise with the United States Air Force, huge joint exercise. You had the B-1 bomber going right there, literally being escorted by Israeli Defense Force, the F-15s, the F-16s. But America showing its force with Israel against Iran. They even did simulated bombing runs, the exact same kilometers from Israel to Iran, so they would know right where they have to refuel. So, I mean, to have that publicly in the Jerusalem Post and all those other outlets is showing Iran, you better buckle up. You're getting ready to get hit by Israel because you're not going to be able to nuke Israel. So all of that's happening right in front of our eyes. Much more happening with volcanoes, stuff about asteroids. A bunch of things came out this week even about asteroids. So what does it mean? It just means we're very close. But we always go to the Word and look, what does the Word say that we would look for? Number one, Israel made a nation. Number two, Jerusalem won back. Jesus said the generation that sees those two events won't pass away till all is fulfilled. But then you've got the Hebrew language restored, because God said he would do that just before the Messiah comes. You have the archway for Baal worship being rebuilt in Palmyra, Syria by Russia. The Talmud says that's the last sign you'll see for the coming of the Messiah. You have the fertility of the land of Israel, massive. You have the revival of the Roman Empire, massive. That's a huge deal. The Capitol building being in Strasbourg, France. All these things put together, you're like sign after sign after sign. You've got men will be lovers themselves. You have 172 different species of predatory birds start showing up in the land. I mean, amazing that nature is getting in place. Fish showing up in the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea turning blood red where Sodom and Gomorrah were. On the Day of Atonement, you have foxes showing up on the Temple Mount. You have the ritual baths around the temple fill up with water. You had Jacob's 20,000, the lineage of their sheep show up a couple of weeks ago. You had the 5 red heifers show up. You have all this stuff ready for temple sacrifice. Really, the temple sacrifice stuff should be telling us that the Messiah is just about to come back. Wow. I mean, this is all so exciting. I even don't have time to get into all of it, but remember we talked about Israel putting in a fast train system straight from Ben Gurion Airport straight to the old city of Jerusalem. Right now, it's very complicated to get there. They're going to put a fast track so you can go straight to the temple and have sacrifices. There was one of the leaders of Israel up on the Temple Mount today saying he's going to change the status quo on the Temple Mount. Man, just that verbiage right there. I mean, I haven't even talked about all of the terrorism that's been happening in Israel all over the country, one thing after another. So it tells me there's getting ready to be some changes happening. So all these signs show us Jesus is just about to come. And then you go from signs to signals. We talk about the blood red moons. You had 4 in a row on Passover and Tabernacles. When's the last time you had 4 in a row on Passover and Tabernacles? You had that in 1967 when Jerusalem was won back. 1948 when Israel's made a nation, 1492 at the Edict of Expulsion when the Jews were kicked out of Spain. So remarkable events in the heavens coinciding with great events happening with Israel. And then you had the Bethlehem star. I always talk about that's probably my favorite. You got Jupiter, a king planet, Regulus, Regal, a king planet, Venus, men are from Mars, women from Venus, a mother planet. You had Regulus do retrograde motion, formed a crown right over Jupiter. Amazing, the birth of the king. What was the constellation? Virgo. This last year, NBC Nightly News said there's a heavenly event. Pretty cool. Jupiter, Regulus, and Venus coming together, Bethlehem star. What was the constellation? Leo. He's the Lion of the tribe of Judah. My friend, he came and died. God raised him from the dead. He overcame death, hell, and the grave, and he's just about to come again as the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. We're going to be raptured. We're going to go up to meet him in the air. We'll come back with him on white horses, and we'll reign on the earth for 1,000 years. We have so much wonderful things to look forward to. The rapture's not an ending, it's a beginning. You're writing your resume for what you'll be doing during that time, that 1,000 years. So wonderful things ahead. You talk about hope deferred makes the heart sick. This is things that build our hope up because we're about to see the King. There's nothing cooler than being with the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. In his presence is fullness of joy. You better get ready. Your joy is about to get maxed out because we're going to be with the King. Wow. All these signs point to great changes coming, and that change is the King of Kings coming back to the earth. Wow. We worship him. We honor him. We bless him. We magnify him. He deserves all the honor and all the praise. Think about it. Think about it. It pleased the Father that in him would all the fullness of the Godhead dwell bodily. Well, we're about to see him. Man. Come back next week. We'll get into all things that are happening pointing to the return. We're about to see the King. Have a blessed week. See you next Wednesday.
Thanks for joining us today at the End of Days Update. If you'd like to be notified every time there's a new post, just go to the edu at josephmorris.com and subscribe to receive email alerts. If these posts and updates have been a blessing to you, please consider making a one-time donation to help get the message out, or even becoming a monthly partner with Joseph Morris Ministries. Thanks again for tuning in to the EDU, and we'll see you next week.
One love to overshadow.